I'm 100% winging this. Great. Because
That is what I love to hear.
Yeah, I'm sure it instills a lot of confidence. But the theme of the panel is something about leveling up your something or another and working with small publishers and this, that, and whatever. And so I think there's a very interesting and nice variety of people involved in small press right here. So we've got a couple of publishers. We've got a person who organizes the Detroit Zine Fest, right?
Yeah.
So you've got that aspect of it, and then a retailer, Chris, who I've met before up in Milwaukee with the store Lions Tooth, very supportive of small press artists and publishers and things like that. So not sure what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about small press publishing, right? And getting your work out there, right? And everybody here on this table is going to have some expertise about that. So we're just going to, I'm hopefully going to just get them rolling and let them talk a little bit. And this may be boring, but I was wondering if we could start out with folks introducing themselves and kind of talking briefly about what they do. And
Yeah, so my name is Aya. I run Maamoul Press, which is a small press and collective based in Metro Detroit. And we publish as well as distribute comics and other artwork from a different range of artists, namely from Arab, North African, South Asian backgrounds. And we try to focus on, creating a platform for stories that don't always have that platform, and from people who come from communities like the ones we come from, and being able to tell those stories.
Nice. I'm Chris. I'm in Milwaukee with Lions Tooth. I have a business partner who can't be here because she's at the store right now. Our store is a tiny space. We do have a little bar, though. It's tiny, but very nice.
welcome to Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's Wisconsin, so we have beer and wine and non-alcoholic drinks, too. We try to work, we sell radical nonfiction books, and then we sell graphic novels for all ages and comics for all ages. No superheroes, and a lot of self-published things. What our intent is to be a mission-driven store, which means, and our mission is to support and provide a retailing space for people who are self-publishing. So we don't do consignment, we buy things up front. That means that sometimes we can't buy a lot of stuff because we're constantly broke, but hopefully not forever. But that's what we do. So you go into the store, and that's and then we also we display art from people. It's a space that people can have events. It's a space that if you're going around on a tour, you can very easily schedule an event at Lions Tooth. We don't have a built-in audience, but we are forming a Milwaukee comics community with other folks who are doing other stuff. So it's really, that's what we do. It's tiny bookstore, old style. We're going to be broke forever, but we're very happy with it.
The tiny
okay.
the tiny bookstore, but big heart.
Good.
Yeah.
I understood sad. I'm like, it is a little.
No, that sounds so sick, is what I said. I want to have a little zine shop one day.
Yes.
But hi, everyone. I'm Yhasmin. I'm the organizer for Detroit Zine Fest, Metro Detroit's primary and only current Zine Fest, but specifically ran by 2 Black non-binary trans people. My co-organizer, Evie, couldn't be here today, but shout out to them, because without them, my head would be rolling off my shoulders and on the floor. So what we aspire to do is to have a space where people from marginalized communities, disenfranchised communities can have a chance to network and table at an event that they might not otherwise get the chance to. So because of this, we operate on a sliding scale with us accepting table fees from $5 to $45. And if someone contacts and says they don't have $5, forget it. Don't worry about it. You're still in. We don't want there to be any type of barrier that prevents these artists from being able to network, sell, build their audience, and get their work out. Some publishers like to come and table with us, small micro press, as well as independent artists, photographers, zinesters, comicers, all types of people who make zines. And I just hope that I can give enlightenment on the self-publishing aspect because I have submitted to publishers before. There has been some interest. There has been some not interest. And I would like to hopefully show you that although working with anyone on this panel would be wonderful, you can also do it yourself and you don't have to wait to get anyone's yes to get your art out there and to get your work out there and to get the notoriety and the celebration that you deserve. So again, my name is Yhasmin and my pronouns are they and them. So hi everyone. Pardon? So we actually just got a date for 2024. It's going to be on April 6th at the Jam Handy in Detroit. And applications for tables open on Halloween, and they'll be open for a month to make sure that it's an accessible time period for everyone. So you want a table? Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah? Yeah? Maybe. I mean, well, you can support me, but I want to support you, so I'll see you at the table. Okay.
I love it. I love it. My name is Alex Hoffman. I am from Fieldmouse Press, which is a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit press based in Grass Valley, California. It's Northern California. I make this joke a lot, but it's the beautiful part of California that's already always on fire. I work remotely. I'm actually from Cleveland, Ohio, so I was able to drive up for the show today. So Fieldmouse Press got started in 2019. We initially started as a collective of comics critics and comics adjacent people who are really interested in making a space for essays and new comics on the web. In 2021, we were one of he's my acquiring editor. His name is Rob Clow. Runs the website Rob Clow High-Low, or Rob Clow High-Low, which is a very long-running blog about comics. And Rob reached out to me and said, hey, I think we should publish Ariel Bordeaux's Clutter. And since then, we've been publishing a few books a year. We've really ramped up over the last year. This year, we'll publish 6 books in 2023, and we're looking at somewhere between 8 and 12 for 2024. So from that beginning in 2021, and we have impeccable timing, right? Because the COVID pandemic, and but with the support of people through crowdfunding was how we got our start, and then the support of folks like Chris from Alliance Tooth, we've been able to limp along as a nonprofit. I'll be honest though, anybody that's in, unless you're a bigger corporation like Abrams or one of the other big book monoliths, small presses, even if they don't say they're nonprofit, they're basically nonprofit. So we're all, we're doing it because we love it. And then I'll say our vision for Fieldmouse Press is to create a space. I'll put it this way. We believe that comics should be a space for every person and every story. We focus our work largely on our publishing work on stories that are authentic to the person that's writing them. Essentially, we're not necessarily looking for genre stories that everybody could do. We're looking for work that only you could make, right? And I think that's important to us. So we work with a lot of marginalized creators. The vast majority of our author slate at this time is in the LGBTQ space. And so it's really important to me as a queer person to make space for that community as well. And finally, I should say my pronouns are he and him. So, thank you.
All right, now I have to thank you very much for all that. And I think it goes to show the wide range of people here on the panel. We're all involved in small press, and we're all involved in getting small press work in front of people, and we're all doing it in little slightly different ways. My first thing that I was curious about, and so the theme of the panel, I think it's kind of designed for people who maybe have work and they're like not sure how do I, where do I go with this? Maybe they're interested in getting it into stores, or maybe they're interested in tabling at a place like this or a Detroit Zine Fest, and maybe they're interested in getting it into the hands of a publisher who could maybe do some other things with it. So one thing that I'm curious about as a person who both self-publishes and also works with outside publishers at times, and I guess my first question or topic thing would be more for the two publishers at the table, and that would be, we're at a Comix show where there's a lot of self-publishers, and Comix has traditionally had a very strong self-publishing base or background, and I guess I was curious how you view your role as a publisher, what you can provide maybe that goes above and beyond what aspiring cartoonists can do themselves, right? And so I think we're in a very interesting time in small press comics where there's a lot of people who are self-publishing work, and obviously the printing has gotten so much easier to come by, right? You don't have to just photocopy in black and white and stuff. And so I'm just curious how you guys, what you think you can provide to authors or cartoonists that maybe they can't provide themselves, or ways in that you assist them as a publisher.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Would you like to start first?
Yeah, could you, Aya?
Sure. So with our press, the press was co-founded late 2018 by me and Leila Abderrazak, who is another local artist, and it was kind of born out of the desire to see. I'm Lebanese, she's Palestinian, we're both Arab. We weren't seeing just a lot of work from people who looked like us out there at these shows, but it's also a lot of work to go to shows and travel and table and have a website and all these things. Leila had just had a graphic novel published, and she had started, entering this space of going to comic shows and stuff like that, and figured she had space on her table for more than just her own books. Part of it is, it opens like some accessibility where by having this small press we can have, and it started as just a distro before we were also printing things, where people who are printing and self-publishing their own work, even if they're doing that aspect of it, they then have someone else, the distro, to help get their work out there and take it to all these shows that they might not otherwise be able to go to. Another aspect of that is that the landscape has shifted over the past few years in terms of people from our backgrounds breaking more into mainstream publishing, but at the time it was, you never saw a lot of this kind of work. Since Persepolis was published in 2005, publishers just want the next Persepolis. They don't want to, or there wasn't interest in stories from Arab artists unless it was like a war memoir or something like that. And it was like, when do we get to just tell our own stories that are just about us being human and that kind of thing? And we were very inspired by a lot of work happening in the Arab world that didn't get to reach here and reach this audience. So we also wanted to bridge that gap, or try to bridge it a little bit. So we also print and publish work from artists from abroad whose work could otherwise never reach a US or North American audience. So that's a way that we try to bridge that a little bit and bridge the gaps between our sort of scattered communities, and as well as distribute work from published in those countries that's very hard to find here otherwise. And yeah, just kind of open those doors a little bit. And you know, I think self-publishing can be a bit daunting to folks sometimes if they don't know anything about how to do a layout design or how to work with a printer, and we do also have an interest in like fostering that knowledge and doing workshops around like making your own zines and working with printers and that kind of thing. But also sometimes it's helpful for an artist to have the small publisher who can also take that on and print and publish your work for you. And we have day jobs and we run the press on a voluntary basis. It's not profitable for us, but even the amount of like the breakdown of the cut that goes to the press versus what goes back to the artist is unusually high for publishing, because we just do it to facilitate creating a platform for artists and allowing their work to be out there, and also allowing artists to make some profit.
Yeah. I like what I said there in terms of trying to make a space for artists, because I think that's really critical to us. I think one of the other things that I think a small press publisher can do for you that you may not have access to yourself is giving you another set of eyes, an editor perhaps, or someone who can be in place to kind of assist you through the process. So we take projects that are completed, and we also take projects that are in process. And so my acquisitions editor, Rob, has a great eye for detail, really knows how to find the beating heart of a story and make sure that that's the version of the story that ends up on the page. I think one of the other things that a small press publisher can help with is distribution. So we're still working on that on a larger scale. But we have these small agreements with bookstores across the United States, across Canada and Europe, that we can send your book to them and they can sell it there. I think publishing to a large degree is, it's a middleman position, right? I am a person who kind of helps process art and make sure that it gets to the right hands. But because we have the ability to look at projects from a bigger perspective, we can also put more resources into the project than maybe that you have to do a project. So for example, like we can do an offset print of 1,000 copies of your book, which may be something that you wouldn't be able to do if you were to self-fund it. Now, I don't want to discount the ability for anyone to publish their work through a platform like Kickstarter or Crowdfunder. Those are extremely accessible and easy to use tools that can really help you if you're a self-publishing author. But they also come with their own caveats, right? Like you have to fulfill and complete all that work yourself. And if that's not something that you feel up to doing that, then a small publisher like us can help with that. I think it sounds like the position of Maamoul and our position is very similar. All of the labor of the press is on a voluntary basis. We're real, as a nonprofit, our goal is to help elevate artists. And again, we're trying to do something very equitable with our payment structure. But that may not be what you see across the board from all publishers. The goal of most publishers, I would say, as for-profit businesses, is to make money, and so they're going to be, they're going to try to sell your work, and I think that's also something that's really important, right? Like, if you're entering into a book publishing deal, you want to know, like, how are you going to market my work? How are you going to sell my work? What's the goal here? What are you expecting from me? What should I expect from you? And hopefully the people that you're working with are going to be upfront and open about that as much as possible. And if they're not, then maybe that's a red flag.
Yeah, as a self-publisher, one thing that I do when I talk, especially when I talk to like aspiring cartoonists in a class area, and this is no dig on like the traditional publishing model, but I'll hold up one of my zines that I sell for $5, and I'll hold up a book, you know, one of the book collections of my zines or whatever that sells for $25, and I'll, you know, when I sell one of these $5 zines, I as an artist make more money than I do, you know, getting the royalties from this big book. And that's not to say that the big book doesn't have value to me as an artist, or, you know, because it's getting my work out in front of people that I may not be able to find, right? And usually the publisher has more resources than a self-publisher for that kind of thing. But, you know, for me, and I think a lot of working cartoonists, there's a, you know, and that's, I think, one thing that unifies the panelists here is that cartooning is hard to sustain, right? And so one of the things I love about comics is that there's some exceptions here and there, right? But pretty much we're in this world because we love it, and we're willing to sacrifice certain things that other people wouldn't because of our love for the medium and this. And so everybody at the table here is contributing to the larger goal of getting this work out into the world, helping artists sustain themselves, helping readers find that work. So, you know, in terms of any cartoonists in the audience who are looking to, you know, get their work out, for you, Cris, with a retail space, I'm curious if you have any advice or, you know, it's funny because I've had people, because I run a distro as well, not so much anymore, but I've had people who are like, want me to carry their stuff, and to the point that they're willing to, like, well, what if I do it this way? What if I put a different cover? And I'm just like, you should do it exactly how you want to do it. Don't think about me or whatever. And so you're in a similar situation. And maybe it sounds like you're very, very inclusive, right? So if you bring the work, if somebody brings the work to you, you're going to work with them. But do you have any kind of thoughts as a retailer about
I'm made of advice. The one thing I think, it starts with the very start of the project. How much is it going to cost to print? There's a lot of pressure. So I want to say two different things. There's a lot of pressure for bookstores to carry big publishers. The big publishers will tell you, you don't have to pay us in 90 days. If we support a Kickstarter, we have to pay up front, and the product doesn't come to us until much later. So if you have a for-profit bookstore, the pressure to put the big books that are only there for 2 years and then they disappear from the face of the earth, it's the spookiest thing. You know, like you want to sell something and it's, you know. So there's a lot of pressure for that. So the big publishers come with that. That's why those books are everywhere. Now, I think there's a number of stores in America that are like we are. Each store has a different rule. So if you want to sell at Desert Island in New York, we'll take one copy. If that sells, we'll take another one. If we sell it at Quimby's in Chicago, it's consignment. You know, so every store, so learn what the rules of the store are. But I think the process starts much earlier. I used to work with film, and there was a phrase that a company called Good Machine, it was like they used to do like the Greg Araki movies when they were tiny movies, How Hartley. And the thing is, the budget is the aesthetic. And I think John, So it's like, how much is this gonna cost to make so that I can sell it and still have a profit? Sometimes we have people come to the store with beautiful editions, but they cost like $30 to make. So if the store is gonna take 40 or 50%, that thing is gonna end up costing $60 and nobody's gonna buy it. So the budget is the aesthetics means have ideas in black and white that can be photocopied, for instance. You can have your dream project and you can balance that, but remember that how much you're gonna, that's gonna sell, if you sell directly to the public, you're gonna make more money than selling through a bookstore, for instance. When you sell through a bookstore, you're gonna have to have the bookstore cut on that so that we can keep our lights open. What we tell the artists is like, okay, so this costs $2.50 to make. If you sell it directly, you're gonna make $2.50. If you sell it through Lion's Tooth, you're gonna make $2.50 if the cover price is $5, right? Like, so let's say the cover, sorry, I'm not very good at math, which also explains why, my business partner is great at it though, so we're almost there. But let's say it's $5. So if you can do, when they come to the store, we say, okay, how about we do $7? Because people are paying for the convenience of buying that at the store and not from the artist. When you buy from the artist, it makes sense that it should cost a little bit less. You know what I mean? So, but sometimes it's really hard. We feel really bad when people come in with perfectly bound books that they spent all that time making. Let's talk about comics. It takes a lot. I don't think there's many shortcuts in comics. Comics, it takes a long time to make. And then we can't sell it because the price point's gonna be so high. So it starts right in the beginning on the planning, what you wanna do with that. Kickstarter, this is very straight up advice, make a retail tier so that we can, as retailers, buy 5 copies for half price or 40% or whatever discount you wanna, and that makes it easier for us too than to getting in contact after the book is published. That's how we buy Fieldmouse Press, for instance. So think about it, think about the numbers before and adapt your work to what's gonna make, like John's comic is black and white. I love once you posted something that was just like the micron pens and some paper, and this is all I've used all my life to make comics,
I was just telling someone, because they were asking what kind of paper I use, and I buy laser paper, but the fancy laser paper, it costs like $18 for 500 sheets. But then I cut that in half, and I have 1,000 pages to draw comics on for $18. And the last time I bought paper was like 14 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so
No way.
one thing that I was thinking about when you're talking about the prices that I've seen as a person who distributes stuff too, like the other side of it is when people have like they'll bring in some 36-page zine or show it to me or whatever, and they want to sell it for $1.50, and I'm always just like, I understand the impulse, and that's great, and they can afford to do it or whatever. They probably get their copies for free or something, but it's just like, you're not helping yourself to have a price that low. You're not helping the stores who are selling it, or the distros who are selling it. The reader's getting a great, fantastic deal, but everybody else is like, has holes in their shoes in order to sell it at that price point. So it's of course, it's like everything in life, it's a fine line between these extremes. You want your work to be accessible and affordable, right? But you also want it to make sense. You want hopefully the goal for us all is to create a sustainable world for cartoonists and artists and publishers and retailers to exist in. So with the Detroit with the Zine Fest, can you talk a little bit about how, I mean, I know you did in your intro, but talk about a little bit how you see your role in providing service to the community of artists and readers, please.
Absolutely. So with Zine Fest, it was born, I won't say exactly out of necessity, but Evie and I would drive to Toronto for like queer, trans, POC driven Zine Fest. We drive to Grand Rapids for the Grand Rapids Zine Fest. We went to Street Cat Zine Fest. And eventually, after all that driving, with only the closest Zine Fest being like 3 hours away in Grand Rapids from Metro Detroit, we were like, we can do this. Mm-hmm. We can do this. So what we did was we secured a grant. We got a wonderful, wonderful rate at the Jam Handy to be able to provide this space for zine makers and artists, like I said, marginalized voices, people who are disabled. Like we made sure it was an ADA compliant building, and we made sure that we were going to be able to be accessible to as many people as possible. Like I said, a lot of the artists that we have table with us may not otherwise get the chance to table. For some of the artists, we've had 2 Zine Fest, and that was 2022 and 2023, and some of them didn't have the means to go to other Zine Fests, but because of the fact that Detroit Zine Fest is free to the public, sliding scale, and we're also nonprofit, as you said. You know what's up. We do it out of love.
Whether
we really
you like it or
do.
not.
Whether you like it or not. So what Evie and I sit around and talk about and dream about is just being able to provide this space for as many years as possible, and to be able to let people who self-publish, to let the micro publishers, to let the small publishers, to grow their audience in the Metro Detroit area. And also we have a lot of people come from all around to the Detroit area. It's only charming hearing, like, I was so scared to come here like 2 times, but on the 500th time, gets a little tiring. Don't be scared to come to Detroit. But yeah, what we really want is just for these people to be able to build their networks and build a sustainable art practice. And so that's why we offer everything free. That's why we do a lot of labor. We just want to make sure that we take as much of the burden off of the artists. So we try to do the advertising of the fest really well. We try to do the marketing really well to get as many people to come to the fest as possible, all with the end goal of making sure that people are growing their audience. Like I had a wonderful person come up to me and say that they started a Zine Fest because we had a Zine Fest, and they came and it was nice. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can't make everyone be like a free fest. I can't make everyone do sliding scale. I can't make anyone do anything. But the fact that more spaces are being inspired to pop up and give people the chance to self-publish, or small publishers to table and make sure that they're moving books and, making sales, it's really important to us. So that's our kind of stance. Mm-hmm. And I was I'm always delighted wherever I go in Michigan when I see Maamoul Press. I'm so happy because the first time we went to have Zine Fest, unfortunately, was 2020. Mm-hmm. And we approached you and we gave you a card. And we were like, please apply. And then the pandemic. And we were so thankful when we were able to start back up again with some safety measures in place that you did apply. I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, that's our stance. That's where the heart of Detroit Zine Fest is being able to give this space to the community.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even for us being a small press, that kind of accessibility is still very important, especially because the majority of the profit that we generate at these cons is going back to artists. The cut that goes back into the press is very small. So traveling to cons and paying expensive table fees and lodging and things like that is also an accessibility issue. So when there's like a con that's local and accessible and affordable, that's always like incredible, even for us. So,
And thank you for
yeah.
coming so much. Like, it's funny because both, if I can interrupt with a personal story, I don't remember what was the newest release you had at Detroit Zine Fest?
Inside the Giant Fish.
Inside the Giant Fish. So Evie went and bought it for themselves, but they had been talking about it since you announced it. So I went and bought it for Evie. And we both came up, and I swear we both like did this with the book, and they were like, "Oh, you got it for yourself," and I'm like.
Every publisher's dream.
No,
Yes.
no,
Two
I gave it
sales.
to them, and they gave the copy they purchased to their partner. So we were just trading books around. We were like, yeah.
One for the collection, one to read.
One to read,
The
one for
other
the
one you put on
collection.
eBay
Yeah.
15 years from now.
Yeah.
We had somebody come up to the table today who had stopped by and bought a couple books and then came back later for another book, and I was like, yes. Got him. Got him.
Got him hooked.
But you know, it's like for a small press, like, and I'm sure that I would like agree that there's a lot of joy in being there to be like, oh, if you like this, then you really are gonna like this. And then when people like listen to you and actually pick the thing up and they leaf through it and they're like, oh, okay, yes, I'll take this as well. Like, I think part of the reason to publish or to work with a small publisher is because that you're going to have someone on your side. And I think to a large degree, that's what all of the people at this table are really trying to do. Like, whether it's partnering with you for a retail space, partnering with you to make an accessible space so that you can build an audience like a Zine Fest, that's largely our goal. Now, I'll be honest, that's not every publisher's goal, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, and I think, and I'm not going to disparage any publisher because I don't think that that's fair, but I think that, you know, when you're working with a small collective like mine or like Maamoul, or if you're working with folks like, for example, Silver Sprocket, based out in California, you're working with people that have a true passion and joy for what they're doing and for what you're doing, and I think that's really important. I think stepping over, maybe hijacking the conversation a little bit, but to talk a little bit about the things that I think are important as a publisher for artists to know is make sure that you're looking at the contracts or whatever paperwork that they're giving you. I would really be cautious about accepting a publishing agreement without something on paper. We offer a pretty standard contract that we offer to most of our artists, and we try to try to be as upfront and equitable and transparent as possible. But if you're not getting that kind of respect from a business, because a lot of these other publishers are businesses, you want to have that all locked in. Like, John, you've published with D&Q, you probably had to look over a pretty lengthy document and sign the thing. And so they have expectations of you, you have expectations of them, and make sure that they're holding to the letter of their law, because as a publisher, I think, you know, I want that there to be no ambiguity about what I'm trying to do and what rights I have to publish your work and all of that. Be cautious about whether or not your publisher wants to take other rights from you besides just the publishing piece. So make sure that they're not asking for your development rights or for your any type of like other media, like television or movies or what have you. You never know. There's this guy named Chuck Forsman who had a pretty small little zine that turned into a big Netflix show. And luckily, because he did not agree to sign away his movie and television rights, he got all that money for that deal, right? Yes. But he could have. But he worked out the agreement. Like, that was in the agreement that this is hearsay, so please forgive me. But if, let's say, if the contract with his publisher did not, like, took those rights, then they would be the ones that are making all that money, not him.
From his intellectual property.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So we ask essentially for the license to print and publish your work, and that's it. We don't take any other rights whatsoever. We make that abundantly clear. But I think, making sure that you have that document and that you go over that document with a fine-tooth comb, even if you have to have someone who's already published a book look at it, a lawyer if you need to, any other resource you need. Ever since the recent changes with the CBLDF, their interim director has been really great. If you have questions about legal stuff, it's
a comic book legal defense fund.
Yeah, the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, CBLDF. They'll take a look at contracts for you. They'll work with you. So, largely we're just trying to be upfront about all of that and make sure that you know what you're getting into when you sign a contract.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something. We're very obsessed right now with growing the audience. The only way to grow an audience is time. Not the only, but time and consistency. If you don't have money for advertising or something, is like time and consistency for people to find you. Remember, we used to say the Lion's Tooth had followed more people than people followed us, and then when it find that turn, we're like, champagne time, But if you stay, on track, but be very careful. There's a lot of temptation on social media and everything for the self-promotion. On social media, we are the product. You know what I mean? We are what they're selling. We're giving our work for free for all those ads that come and go. And then you're at the mercy of the algorithm changing. And then all of a sudden, nobody sees what you're posting or, So be very mindful of that. I feel really like a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people who are talented, people who could be doing comics, that because of for survival end up doing a lot of merch and household items and stuff, and it's beautiful stuff, and I want all of it, but I want the comics, I want the stories, right? So there's a lot of traps that you can avoid. One thing that is important, I think more important than growing your audience, is growing your community. It's like a lot of us have social anxiety and it's hard to but the community is where things go, I translated Palestine to Portuguese many, many years ago, and big Joe Sacco fan, and but we have a lot of Palestine-centric books at my bookstore, and I'm always so happy when somebody walks by and sees it from outside. You have kids' books, because we have kids' books too, and I'll get give me your email, whatever we have, I will send you a message, about it. And people, I think even the customers, because the readers, that's what they're craving. Everything is artificial. Everything is formulaic. When people encounter something real to read, or a real experience at a store, or the Zine Fest that the person who is creating is right there in front of them, this is what people crave. Yeah. This is what you can't get from the devil, from Amazon. Yeah. Beelzebuzz. You can't get it from them. Get your toilet paper if you need. I don't care. But your book and your culture, get it from your community. Not only national but international solidarity community. I'm originally from Brazil, always trying to make this bridge between, there's not there's like-minded people everywhere. Everywhere. Find those people and pay less attention, and maybe that way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like less an audience and more a community.
And that I was listening to everybody talk. That's what I think it's something that we all know. Anybody who's involved in this world knows at the core that's what this is about. It's about community and it's about sharing ideas, right? But it's easy to get, caught up in like, I didn't have enough people at my table, or this book is too expensive, or whatever. But what I see, just in this group here, we've got a store, a zine festival. Those are entities that are helping to create, engender, and support and nurture community on a local level, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have a citywide Zine Fest. You have people coming from the community, and now you have people coming from even further, which is great, and they're all kind of expanding and enriching that local community. And you've got a shop that people walk down the street and walk into and pick up a book. What you see with the publishers are the larger community of readers and artists and publishers, right? Because there are a lot of folks who can't get to a Zine Fest or don't have a store like Lion's Tooth in their town, and they can find your website and find a book that speaks to them. And it's kind of corny, but this is the kind of stuff that starts to make me cry, because that's what really truly it is about. It's about connecting with other people, and we're using art to do that, right? And so again, that's the thing about comics that I think everybody realizes at a certain point is like, it's all about the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you are a marginalized group, or if you are an eccentric, you're gonna find your eccentrics,
Yes.
in other places. And the queer community was the very first community that embraced Lion's Tooth. We cast a very wide net. And the queer community was the first one. Okay, we're here.
Hey.
And little by little, like it's really hard for me as being Latina, like not having. Milwaukee is a very segregated city, not having a lot of I don't speak Spanish, so that's kind of hard because I speak Portuguese in Brazil. So Brazilians are always kind of like in that place where we don't, but we always try to do outreach to try to bring everybody. It's hard. But it's an exercise that we need to do. But it's been fascinating in Milwaukee to see the people finding their crowd.
Do you have a web store that can be supported?
We do. The thing with the web store is, for instance, if I'm going to sell an artist, if I'm not going to put Ariel's book in the
Web store.
web store because I want people to get it from them.
From them.
Or if it's the artist that produced. Sometimes, and also our store, we have one copy of each book at a time.
Okay.
We're tiny.
Okay, so do you ever have two friends fight to the death for one book?
So we had a story. Do you guys know who Johnny Ryan is? Johnny Ryan is an artist that is very controversial and has been banned from Instagram 1,000 times. If you're a sensitive person, you probably should not look at it because you can't unsee what you see. It's like, I follow and unfollow him on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
I'm like, I did not need this day. And then, because he's a genius too, but then another day is like, oh, how did I miss that? Anyway, Johnny Ryan had a book called Porn Basket, not actual porn, just stuff in very bad taste, I would say, just scatological poop everywhere. Anyway, so we were at the store one day, and for some reason, for some fluke, we were the only store in the country that had Porn Basket. we over-ordered it. So I'm selling the
Casual
last copy
problem.
to somebody, and the other guy goes and this guy goes I really like your jacket. And he goes like, if you give me that copy of Porn Basket, I'll give you my jacket. And I was like, all right, stop everything. I started like filming right away, like on the phone. I'm like, I need, and he traded for the last
That's
copy
wild.
I love
of
that.
all things. Porn Basket,
Yeah,
which
so,
is not a bestseller anywhere else. He's a great, amazing cartoonist, but it's not for everybody. But anyway, yeah, that did happen. Sometimes. It does happen sometimes.
Does happen?
Yes.
Actually, if it's okay, I have a question for the publishers. First of all, as you guys know, I'm the eccentric publish your own zines, woohoo! But I highly recommend working with a publisher if you can get your foot in the door, if they have an open submission period. So I wanted to ask, what are your submission standards? Like, do you have unsolicited submissions, a set submission time? I love the smile over here.
that's such a great question.
We have a submission form on our website, so it's just rolling submissions. There's no specific time frame. And it's just based on, like we have certain description of what we're looking for on the page, and it's just based on that and based on if we feel like the work is the quality that we're looking for and compelling and like the types of stories that we are excited about. So that's all.
Nice.
Yeah. We have open submissions every spring, and we generally keep them open for about 2.5 to 3 months. We also we'll certainly get. I'll have people come up at the show. We'll have a chat. This happened a lot at SBX this year. People come up and they're like, "I really love what you're doing. I'm sad that you're not taking submissions." I'm like, "Here's my business card. Send me an email." Generally, we ask for 10 pages of completed comics plus any additional information that you have about what you think the project's going to look like. How many pages do you think it's going to be? Like, do you have a synopsis, any other additional supporting information, anything that can help us make an understanding or a determination about the work you're trying to make? And then we just kind of go from there. It takes a long time, and I'm pretty slow at it, but every person that emails us a submission does get a response letter. And
That is very rare.
yeah, I've been told that, but they're not. It's not a form letter either. It's this is what we liked about your work. This is what we don't like. This is the reason why we want to offer you a deal. This is the reason why we don't.
Yeah,
So-
and like just a word of praise, like if you are an agented cartoonist or even if you just like reach out to an agent. Sometimes even though you query them and even though they may love your story, it might not be what they're looking for. They do not tell you what they did or didn't like about it. Some may, but the general rule is they will not give you feedback. And then you're left throwing the same story, unless you feel the need to personally change it yourself, you're left throwing the same story over and over and over again without feedback. So that is like, I know it takes so much, but
Yeah.
like I appreciate that so much.
Thank you. It's all part, kind of what John said. It's all about this idea of community. It's about the idea of developing something that lasts. And so, and I'll be honest, Fieldmouse Press is not the best publisher for some books. Like people send us books. I'm like, this is great for someone else to make. Like this is a great book for Fantagraphics. This is I sent a couple people. I'm like, I'm going to email this to Avi Ehrlich. I will let them know that that I'm doing this, and please, I had this great book just a couple of weeks ago. I'm still working through submissions from our spring open, and got this book. Absolutely loved it. The author, a French cartoonist, was like, I want to do this full time, and so I need at least $10,000 worth of an advance in order to make that work. And I said, I love this book, and I just can't do that. And so, so I was like, okay, here are your next steps. So like we actually laid out to the cartoonist, like, here's who you should contact. I'm going to give you referrals to these 2 publishers. I want you to email this person. And again, like,
That's amazing.
I don't have to do that. I do it because I love the art form and I love the people that make it. I think comics, I think largely the people who make comics were working class people. It's a working class art. I think there's a certain amount of solidarity that is at the core of what we're trying to do. And largely, I think the art form is, as many of the people at the table have said, about forming connections with others.
Yes.
And so, to me, it's important to. When I got started in comics, I was a comics critic. That's what I did. I wrote reviews. I've written reviews of John's work, actually, which is
I've been meaning to talk to you about that.
Yeah. I still cry every time I read the issue about Maisie. I'm sorry, that's never gonna stop.
It's never gonna stop.
So I think the thing that's really important to me is like I had so many artists and so many publishers and so many people treating me like as a young person who's like just trying to figure out what I'm into and what I'm doing, like just be kind and generous with their time and their work. And so now as a publisher, a decade later, part of my goal is to pay that back. So
It's very funny you say that. That's exactly how I feel like being your elder, everybody. No, but but honestly, like I've had so many people support me in my life in different areas, that I feel this is what I should be doing now, is trying to lift people up, so. I think we have a time limit.
Yeah, well, there's 5 minutes left, I think, right, for our schedule. And I hate to cut it off because everybody's saying such awesome stuff, but I feel, does anybody have any questions for any of the panelists or any comments that you'd like to?
Yeah, we've even got a mic up here, so.
If there are any, oh goodness, this is not even on. If there are any questions, please feel free to line up at the microphone. If there are not, we're definitely happy that you guys came today.
Yeah, if we're not, then
We
got
one.
somebody.
Yeah.
We got someone.
Hi, I came in a little late, so my question might be like a little redundant. I was just curious where we could get like more information on like where to submit to your various publishing houses.
Yeah. If you want to come up to, I'm sure this is probably the same for you, but come up to my table after the presentation.
House, right?
Yep. mhm.
Oh, okay, cool.
And grab a card, and we'll chat.
Awesome, thank you.
Also, the festival has a list of everybody's
List
links
of attendees and links.
of attendees, and you can
Yeah,
go
if you go
the
to their
different.
website,
and-
there'll be links to everybody's
Yeah,
page.
Lion's Tooth for sure. Like it's just the email. It's just Shelly and I there, and we'll answer. We answer every email because we don't get that many.
Thank you. We have another question.
Nice shirt.
What is the number one biggest mistake that up-and-coming cartoonists make?
The number one biggest mistake.
Would you say that your question is like the biggest mistake as to why they don't take them on as publishers? The biggest mistake that is just like more of a general thing?
Yes.
More of a general
I
thing?
have
More general thing.
I have one that I heard from multiple. I interviewed many cartoonists as a journalist over the years. One of the things I feel is the putting all your ideas in one story and starting with a very long story, like a project. So I heard this from Joe Sacco,
Yes.
actually. Started with a very long, hard to, so,
You can just at me next time.
Yeah.
It's just, I will say as a self-publisher, it took me a while to start. First of all, I discovered zines and comics, like independent indie comics, not Superman, not Batman, in 2013 at A2CAF. I didn't make my own zine until 2016. And since then, I made like a 4-page zine. And when I went to make more comics and more zines, I have a very small discography or bibliography because I did that. I tried to fit everything. I have this great story in my head. It's my magnum opus, and I kept trying to start with it, and it didn't get me anywhere. So just produce what makes you happy, whether it be something really small, something medium length, but don't sit on the same idea saying like it's going to happen eventually. I just have to get it perfect. Your mental appreciation for art will always be way past your skill level, which is something that I personally experience. So I would say the greatest downfall of artists is not making period or waiting to make the magnum opus. Just produce things that you like, things that you're interested. Make fandom work, make personal work, make perzines. Just make sure that you are creating, because you waiting 3 years to get your story together is going to be less, it's going to have less impact than you making the little zines in 3 years and then finally working on that story. So don't stop yourself from creating until you have the perfect idea or you cram all the ideas together.
Or if you're gonna work on the big story, make it smaller. You know what I mean?
Condense
Like
out
it doesn't have to be an epic right away. Make it smaller. I'm working on my first comic, like at 50. I did very little comics when I was like in my 20s. And I have good taste. It's a horrible thing to have good taste if you're not a good artist. But also, I've been playing in not so good punk rock bands all my life, so I'm used to making bad work. So it's okay. But like synthesize it. If you put, and then keep a note of your ideas. They're gonna come for the next book, for the next, just try to make it simple is better if you're starting, I feel.
If I could just say one thing, completed is better than perfect.
Yeah.
So even if you make that epic, or if you just make a story about yourself, I highly recommend making autobio work. Just because you know yourself more than anyone. No one's going to get mad if you draw yourself a funny way. If you do fandom stuff, they're going to be like, that's not how Goku looks. But if you draw yourself, like, what are they going to do? Look at you and be like, your beard's not that color. So I highly recommend making perzine work and topics that you're really familiar about. And I just want to say that finish is better than perfect, because you'll miss out. You really will miss out. Like, you're going to miss the submission period. You're going to miss ever sending it if you never make it because it's not perfect. I just hope that instead of focusing on the failures or things to avoid, just focus on what makes you infinitely happy about art and creating, and just pour everything into that.
And if it's not fun to draw, it's not going to be fun to read. Megan Kelso.
Yes.
Megan Kelso says that.
I mean, think about
fun. If it's not fun to draw, not going to be fun to read.
Yeah, because, think about Mike Mignola of Hellboy fame. He was fired from drawing things like backgrounds and buildings, so he made worlds he didn't have to draw them. Genius. Me, I'm never drawing a car again. Everyone rides scooters now. Okay?
Yeah. It's also more sustainable and lucrative to print something smaller and shorter and sell that and make profit from it than trying to sustain, if you're self-publishing, sustain printing something longer where the price hike is not proportional to what it's costing you to print. And also another just piece of advice would be develop a relationship with a local printer, and that you can just work with and learn from, and just learn more about producing, and being able to, if they have an open shop or something where you can come in and work, that's really valuable.
Thank you.
All right.
We just want to say from the Ann Arbor District Library, thank you all so much for our panel today. We are unfortunately over time, so we're going to have to scoot our way out. Thank you again so much. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists.